Hey, yo, what it do, Ski? D-U-N, and I got a question for you. Who's your favorite black character? Quickly. Did they exist before 2010? If so, you win a prize. If not, go immediately to jail. In the black community, especially in the black nerd community, there is a commonly held notion, an almost monolithic idea. Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z is black. And it's not just Piccolo. Some people see blackness even when blackness is absent from the universe of the world of the show, or game, or whatever. These ideas are so prominent in black nerd spaces, one could be forgiven for believing it's canon. But outside of black spaces, they're often met with a level of credulity, a level of confusion, and dare I say, a level of outright hostility. Piccolo isn't black, he's green.
Japan doesn't even have black people. Actually, they're aliens, or animals, or ghosts.
And since people want to argue, I want to go ahead and speak on it. What makes a character anything? How did this idea even pop off? What was the reason? I ain't sway, I got the answers. Or at least some of them. So today your girl is going to talk to you. I'm going to talk about some characters from anime, from video games, from cartoons, and we're going to discuss how they became black. Chapter 1. Lord, give me a sign! First, let me explain how I'm going to explain this. And we got to learn two important terms. That is semiotics and coding. Bear with me. Listen, I'm trying to learn you something. Semiotics is the study of signs. Coding, in a basic sense, is signs, symbols, words, pictures, gestures, anything you share and can understand to get a message. When we're discussing elements of a character, there's the text, the subtext, but there's also the unintended text. That is, there's what you say, what you mean, and then what other people understand. Media is made of signs, and semiotics are how we understand them. If I describe a character as tall, dark, handsome, do you see a tall black man? Or a white man with black hair? Or do you see a butch lesbian? Or do you see Enderman from Minecraft? If I say a character has skin of bronze, do I mean the character's skin color is bronze? Or do I mean that the character is made of bronze? If I say a character has dreads, do you immediately picture a Rastafarian or a Viking? Some would say it's impossible to know what the author truly means when they say something. Others would say that audience interpretations are invalid because of authorial intent. I'm here to say that intent doesn't always matter, especially when we're discussing coding. Coding is using common signals to indicate elements about a character. This can be intentional or it can be unintentional. And because of that discussion, it's a little bit more nuanced than saying, oh, this isn't canon. This leans into the idea of the death of the author as a lens of analysis. Now, I know I just dropped a lot on your head, but let me just give you some examples to really show you what I mean, all right? This is Minnie Mouse. No, wait. This is Mickey Mouse. This is Minnie Mouse. What's the difference between them? You're gonna say, obviously, one is a boy and the other one's a girl. But if you look at the character design, what is really the difference between Mickey and Minnie? Eyelashes and a bow. This is, of course, just talking about the heads. If you look at their bodies, one of them is walking around with a chest out pants on, while the other one's in a skirt. And both of them are wearing shoes, but, one of them's got a little bit of a heel to it. We love a chunky heel. This is an example of gender coding. This is how you make a boy character a boy, or a girl character a girl, or if you're non-binary, they just make us like aliens or robots. Come on. Nobody really argues with this means of coding characters, and it's routinely used as a way to trick anime fans with the prevalence of the trap character. See Felix from ReZero. He does not work as a character if you do not code him as a girl first and then reveal, haha, he's a boy. Sexuality coding is a little bit more overt and a lot more noticeable when you see a character who is speaking with a very pronounced lisp and is a little bit more overt with their body language and their voice a little bit higher toned than the other male characters, or a little lower for the female characters? Or is that peak androgynous that people seem to love? Now, this is an example of coding, but this is not to say that these characters are automatically gay or queer. It is just to say they are coded as such. They are read as such, playing off of the stereotypes, and whether they are played straight, ironically, or not, it doesn't really have to do with the signs. The signs show you what they are. It's up to you to perceive them that way or not. In fact, this has a lot to do with old codes back in the 1900s, aka the Hays Code. Many villains were allowed to be gay because being queer was looked at the same way as being wicked. And even after the Hays Code was abandoned, you still had queer-coded villains, like Ursula, who's based on a drag queen, or Scar with his affected pronunciation and his catsy. Many of the villain characters from Disney movies and other properties were camp and queer-coded, and this tendency has persisted till today. Now, this is all pretty commonly accepted in media analysis, and no one's saying that Ursula was gay or Scar was gay, but there were some signs. Now we get on to racial coding. Thank you for being patient, Boobala. You're such a good boy, Chick. Racial coding is often misunderstood as writing stereotypes, but coding differs in the intent and the execution. For example, if I want to show that this character in an American cartoon is Chinese inspired, I could have them speak heavily accented English, or I could have them use some common phrases from Mandarin. I could have them be obsessed with honor or kung fu, or I could have them just like kung fu movies because they're awesome and they watch them with their family. I could have them eat 1 grain of rice and a drop of dew, like a monk. Or maybe they just eat with chopsticks at home versus other characters eating with forks. It's about subtlety and respect and what is the purpose of this character. When the logic is extended to black coded characters, we can see it in the way that the characters speak. Is the character talking about what's happening? Do they use AAVE? Is the character similar to many other token characters? That is to say, are they the different one among the main cast? Are they a no-nonsense leader? Are they cooler than the other characters, either in or out of universe? Are they quick to anger when confronted? These are some things that are quote-unquote coded as black. Now, there is some overlap with stereotype, but again, just because a character has something that is coded as black does not mean that character is black. It just means that they can be read as black. A source I found on Black Star Fest comes with a wonderful quote from gaming journalist Isaiah Colbert, who discussed his desire to assign blackness. He says, "My ability to identify black-coded characters like Piccolo became second nature as I matured in a world infused with cartoons and anime." He continues, "Black-coded characters are not technically black, typically because the race system we've constructed is not mirrored in the world they exist in. They are instead coded as black, and how their stories or representations often mirror the black experience in America." Shouts out to Black Starfest. Chapter 2. Black King Piccolo. Piccolo exists as almost the archetypical black, but not black character. If you were to ask somebody logically if they think Piccolo is black, depending on who you ask, you'll either ask somebody non-black and they'll say, no, he's green. Or if you ask somebody who is black, they'll be like, he's not black, but he black. A good perspective for this comes from The Atlantic's Jordan Calhoun, who writes, "Not only was Piccolo black without actually being black, but a host of other characters were black adoptees as well, particularly in the 80s and 90s when entertainment media were transitioning away from more blatant depictions of racist caricatures, but weren't sold on diversifying their characters yet either." What is meant by saying Piccolo is black is that Piccolo carries all of the connotations of a black character. He's taller than most of the cast, which is a very common stereotype about black men. He's 7'5". He's supportive. There are numerous stories of black fathers stepping in to be surrogate fathers, if not stepfathers, for fatherless children. He's no nonsense in that stern, strict dad of the 90s that was common in black sitcoms. Even in the filler episodes for Dragon Ball, he was dressed similarly to Will Smith from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. What's interesting about this idea is that it predates the internet, and there's a universality to it. You can hear from numerous black people about Piccolo being black, even though many of these people have never interacted. It's just like a commonly held belief. Now, of course, if somebody is arguing that in canon, Namekians are Africans, that becomes a lot more in the realm of fan fiction. There's a case to be made, seeing as, the Namekians were a colonized people by the oppressive Frieza. And of course, they were genocided by his forces. And then, of course, the diaspora Piccolo, he comes back to the motherland of Namek, and he fights for his people. And then the green goodness, the people, they rise. Now, does any of this mean that Piccolo is actually factually black? No. But if we look into coding, we can see the parallels between his experience, his story, and the experiences of black people. Piccolo being black, writes Jordan Calhoun, matters because I needed him to be. So did countless other kids who were searching for heroes to represent who they were, what they were. Whether in Panthro, or Gaia, or Optimus Prime, Ursula, Powerline, Martian Manhunter, or Mufasa, we took it on ourselves as kids to find the representation we needed. Those characters helped raise us. We found a way to make ourselves feel powerful within a media landscape that treated us as small. We felt strong because they were strong, and I think that's a hell of a thing to celebrate. Chapter 3. Here I come, rougher than the rest of them. And Knuckles. Another character that is commonly perceived as black is Knuckles. And honestly, the argument for Knuckles being black or Afro-Caribbean is stronger to me than any other in any fan fiction ever. Just staring at his design, he's the colors of the Jamaican flag. And even if you don't want to give me the Jamaican flag, he's like 19 African flags as just one character. A notable thing also in the fandom at large is Knuckles' hair is not called quills. He is explicitly said to have dreads on at least every fan site that I've checked. In one of the guidebooks, he even adds a Jamaican affect to when he's giving you clues. In the show Sonic Underground, they give him, I'm not joking here, a reggae theme song.
No one is an island. No one stands alone.
Low-key, it kind of reminds me of Dennis Brown's song, No Man is an Island. If you know, you know. I'm dead! Speaking of his music, by the way, in Sonic Adventure 1, all of the characters have their little theme songs. Sonic has rock, and Tails has softer rock, Amy has pop, Big has like funk house bluegrass rock, or whatever the hell it's called, psychedelic rock, I don't know. E102 Gamma has electronic noise. And Knuckles has a rap theme song with an R&B hook. Then, in Sonic Adventure 2, they take it even further. They go to the next level with Knuckles not only keeping his rap theme song, but having rap theme songs for every one of his levels. Rap from his perspective.
This is Knuckles, and I'm back. I've been away for a while, but I'm back to kick some butt in Wild Canyon. I shall find all the lost pieces of the Master Emerald here. You know me, the fighting freak Knuckles, and we're at Pumpkin Hill. You ready? I ain't gonna let it get to me. I'm just gonna creep down to Pumpkin Hill. I got to find my lost feet. This is your boy Knuckles, and this is Aquatic Mine. I know it, guys. Let's take a
Knuckles to me is like the most overtly black-coded character from my childhood, and again, this is a shared sentiment with many black people in my life and online. As Brandon Johnson wrote for Medium, Knuckles' role as guardian of the Master Emerald further skewed his portrayal towards blackness. Unlike Sonic, Tails, and even Amy, Knuckles led a largely sequestered lifestyle. He was never an outcast, rather an other, who clearly had a different background and upbringing than many of the series' characters. Knuckles, as a character, carries a lot of the elements that one could consider to be black coded. But he was also portrayed by Idris Elba, so argue with God, he's black. Chapter 4. So they black or what? Wilt. Here's a cute one. Wilt from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends is one of the more popular black coded characters in fiction and one of the more accepted ones. He's like a red stilts guy and he's super nice and friendly in a way not unlike LeVar Burton. And his name is the same as the famous basketball player Wilt Chamberlain. Don't look him up. Oh, and he also plays basketball. Huh. And he was imagined by the best basketball player in the show, Jordan Michaels? I'm going to say, though, James LeBron is better. This is another case of a character kind of being obviously coded to be perceived a certain way, but there is still a debate around the race of the character if they were to ever be humanized, to be turned human. Now, I think this is a good place to start comparing old and new non-human black characters. The Backyardigans were created by a black woman and featured characters named Uniqua and Tyrone, which, I mean, I could stop there, but then there's the soundtrack and then there's the voice cast, and it's like, this seems to be like one of the more accepted theories, despite all the characters being like non-human. So much so that there was like a good bit of controversy when somebody drew Uniqua as white. Speaking of controversy, one of the still more highly debated ones is Darwin from Amazing World of Gumball. See, in the show, Darwin is a goldfish. And many people online use the same kind of deflection for Darwin as they use for Piccolo, that he's a fish. Even though he's on all of Cartoon Network's social media and all of the quote-unquote black holidays, your Juneteenth, your Black History Months, with other black characters, it still seems to be a contested point for some people online. Another good case of this is the Ninja Turtles. No, not April. She's human, so she is another form of April. I'm talking about the turtles themselves being black in a crossover comic. Feedback was interesting, to say the least. When people discuss non-human characters having racialized coding, there's often a tendency for pushback from the members of the community who aren't black. Also, open racists, and then, anti-black nerds. That is to say, people who can't see blackness no matter what happened. The pushback to me has always been interesting because there are people who will argue until they are blue in the face that representation does not matter. But they get upset if their ideas, if their desires aren't represented and replicated in the media they consume. Now, I could point to the countless backlashes that happen every time a character is blackwashed. Or I could just point to the fact that there are numerous people online who will make mods to video games to take out black characters. I don't think you'll actually find someone who genuinely one-to-one believes that Piccolo is a black character, in the sense that they don't believe that he is African American. But what they're speaking to is not a literal blackness, but a allegorical blackness. And I think there is room for discussion about how characters can be portrayed and perceived, how they are coded and interpreted. But then again, none of this really matters. They're cartoon characters, and so I say they're all black, and your favorite women are trans, and your favorite men are trans too. Fight me! It's been DUN, and I'm done yapping. Subscribe.